One of the most basic forms of communication you can establish between two modems is hooking them each up to a terminal, or a computer running terminal emulation software, get a phone line between them providing dial tone, dial one from the other, and start typing. Whatever you type on one terminal shows up on the other end. In this video, we'll do exactly that and try to get this old Cisco ATA 186 working to provide us with a phone line. On the way, we'll unbox this new old stock Intel hub to help us gain access to that Cisco ATA's glorious web interface. That won't work, so we'll pull out the heavy equipment. Then we'll try a more real-world modem dial-in example and try hooking up a modem to some Cisco Gear AUX ports and dial in to manage the things remotely over a real terminal. Let's get into it. Today we're going to play around with a bunch of modems. We'll get them talking to each other, talking to other pieces of equipment, and hopefully doing something halfway useful with them. On the right we got a couple of classic Hayes smart modems. This is a 1200, quite old. This one up top is a, oh my, what are they doing? Why do they spin like that? This one up top is a V-Series Ultra Smart Modem 9600, ripping 9600 baud on that one. I know both of these work, and they've had appearances in videos before, so we might mess with them if we need them, but I have these two other ones, and I've never used these. In the middle, we've got this IBM 7852. It's a V34, so even though it looks relatively old, at least to my eyes, it's got to be from the mid-90s or something, not terribly old. And then this Multi-Tech multi-modem, and I don't know when it originally came out, but it's got a nice metal case, and I think this one was built in the mid-2000s, believe it or not. The goal of this video for me personally is to get more familiar with modem-to-modem communication and using modems as a way to reach a remote device the way like a network administrator would, and they still do use the POTS lines to do this, but it was really common obviously in the 80s up through the mid to late 2000s. Now I understand the idea of like dialing into an ISP from a modem. I did that as a kid and as an adult, and I've done it down here in the basement as well. But I've only dabbled just a little bit about interfacing with the modem from a machine, hooking two modems up together, and so on. So that's going to be the big focus of this video. I think we're going to start with this guy right here. Let's have a look. This one was donated to me by Connor at VCF Midwest, and it came from an IBM office. So this was an IBM used modem, presumably throughout its whole life, which is pretty cool. No idea if it works, but it did come with the power adapter. Connor was pretty sure this was the right one. This came out of a box of a bunch of different stuff because it's got the options by IBM logo there. And the voltage is right. It's a center positive 9 volt. And on the back, it also says it is 9 volts. Doesn't tell you if it's center positive, but they were nice enough to let you know that it is DC. So 9 volts DC. In my experience, these modems it's never clear what voltage they want. US Robotics is particularly bad. So here we've got a US Robotics Sportster 33.6 fax modem. I think this one's pretty old. Yeah, from 1995. I suppose that's not pretty old to everyone. I'm older than this, but it's relatively old. And yeah, no indication of the voltage on this thing. They don't tell you anything on the barrel jack input either. This is just like par for the course with modems in my experience. And if you're curious, I'm 99.9% sure I was using this 9 volt AC 1 amp adapter with it last time I tried it, but who knows. So back to this thing, it's very simple. We'll have some basic indicators about what it's up to. It's got a volume control here. It's got like an air vent, that might be a speaker behind there. Power, it is all metal. And the back is being held in with tape because the 2 screws are missing. So someone's been in there, which is maybe good, maybe bad news, I don't know. We saw the power already, then we got the telco line coming in. We've got a phone, so if you're not using the modem, it'll just pass the line through to your phone and you can talk over the phone. And then the serial port. All these old modems, for whatever reason, use the old style DB25 serial port. So it looks like a parallel port, but it's serial. This is actually IBM's little logo that they used for many, many years, maybe they still do, for what a serial connection is. So speaking of cables, if you think of serial, and you're about my age, you probably think of this, a 9-port serial cable. These still show up on some machines to this day, and what this means in practice is that I need a bunch of these adapters, and I only have one of them to get it over to DB25. I used to have more, but I can't find them. So I was digging through my cable pile, and I found some serial cables. So it's pretty much a dead giveaway when you see the DB25 and only some of the pins are there, these particular pins in fact, that it was a serial cable. Unfortunately, this is 2 cables, gray bundle, but the other end is DB9, so we'll figure that out. And then I found this interesting IBM one, and it's got a little adapter on it with those pins I was talking about, but if I take this adapter off, it's got way more pins. But given that this interesting adapter here was on there, maybe we'll be able to use it. It's possible that this is wired for some other serial specification other than RS-232, which is what all my modems are going to be using today, and maybe this is an adapter, but we'll find out. Another goal of this video for me is an excuse to use this VT520 digital terminal, so I can hook up an RS-232 device like this one and interact with it over a keyboard directly from this terminal without using a computer. So we'll definitely be getting this in the mix, at least as we're testing this modems. It's probably enough background information. Let's plug this in. That cable has power, and see what it does. That is good. Green light. Okay, let's get this hooked up. I'll flip him around, show you what's going on the back of this guy. So I've got a serial port I can use here. I think it doesn't care about the gender. It might automatically include a null modem or not, depending on which one you use. We'll talk about null modems later, but basically I have one serial port here. This is a printer port, and then I've got 2 more here, but they're using a proprietary DEC MMJ jack, and it requires even more adapters. We'll go down that route if we really have to, but first I'm going to get hooked up to this one. Got one of these surprisingly long gray serial cables. It's got the 25 pin going into the terminal. This must be like 10 feet long. And so we're going to deal with our first adapter headache here. So that one goes into the modem, and then we're going to use a little gender changer, and we should be fine. Again, I don't remember if I need a null modem, but we'll find out. This thing is still on, so we'll power on this one. It says self-test OK, and we're just connected at 9600 baud. Oh, it won't even take keyboard input. Okay, we have a problem. This is the settings. And so what I'm going to need to do is come into here, and in the transmit speed, we're set to 9600 baud, which I was kind of guessing is what this thing would want by default. First, let's just throw the null modem on there and see where we get. Yet another adapter of sorts. Sometimes you need a null modem when connecting 2 devices by serial directly together. It crosses the transmit and receive pairs so that when this guy transmits, the monitor receives and vice versa. So without changing anything, we can type now. Okay, that's good. And the modem responded okay. So this is actually the modem talking back to us. AT stands for attention. The AT command set came from the company that made those Hayes smart modems. I don't think it was one of these, but one of their very early modems, they made the AT command set, and it allows you to, in basically what became an industry standard, interact with modems over serial. The very simplest thing you can do is just type AT, and the modem will spit back at you. And if it says okay, that means I'm actually talking to this guy over the serial connection. I think ATI might tell us something. I don't know what that means. So if we want to dial a number, this won't do anything, but I can't remember if you need to do a space. Maybe. I just heard the modem click. It doesn't have a line. So yeah, no dial tone. So it attempted to dial the number 555. That's the basics of how you start interacting with these modems over serial. And it's essentially the extent of my knowledge. So next up, let's see if this multi-modem works. On the back, we can see it was manufactured July 6th of 2005. And way down in here, it says 9 volts. I can't even read it. DC. 9 volts DC. Still don't know if it's center positive, though it probably is. It's also got an IBM part number or FRU number. Did IBM own this company? I don't know. And then, of course, no indication whether it's center positive or not. But that's pretty easy. So we'll get the multimeter here in continuity mode. So if the pins are connected, at the end of the day, I'll hear a beep. And what you can do is get to this ground shielding here and go into the middle. No beep, but we do get a beep on the outside of the barrel plug, which means it's center positive. And it also means I can hopefully safely just plug in from the other modem here. Power's off. Of course, that one doesn't fit. Okay, I'll go find another one. This thing, by the way, surprisingly warm. Doesn't hurt or anything, but warmer than you'd think it'd be after doing nothing for 10 minutes. I finally found one. 9 volts is kind of weird these days. Sino-American 9 volt DC center positive. And it works. It fits, I should say. I don't know if it works. Let's get this plugged in. The amount of time I spend off camera every video simply looking for things would horrify you, but it's plugged in. I didn't have too many doubts about this thing, but there we go. This one's obviously a little more sophisticated. It says it's idle. I can change basic options, dialing options, tone pulse. Yep, we'll have to deal with that response stuff later. We'll have to teach one of the modems to pick up when we get dialing and dial tone in the mix. Okay, let's try to talk to this thing with the terminal. So same as before, we'll bring our little adapter over. I'm really gonna have to figure out how to make another one of these. Yikes. The screen on this guy has gone idle. It completely turns off the tube after 10 or 15 minutes. You press a button, it comes right back, which is really nice. Even though this new one got plugged in, we haven't cleared our screen, which is fine. So let's do AT, and sure enough, we get an OK back. Let's try to dial a number, even though we have no phone line. Seeing the lights change on this one, status equals dialing. It thinks it's trying to connect, made the dial noises. I don't think it's going to get very far. It's sure trying though. After a little while it gave up and spit back no carrier, because of course there's no dial tone. We'll be figuring that out shortly. The basic idea next is we're going to get a device that's going to allow us to have dial tone between them, and then they'll actually dial over a POTS line to each other and connect two devices. And I think I have found the solution to my cable problem. This IBM Thinkpad is running Windows 7, and it's got a serial port on the back, which means I can use one of these gray cables I found. This guy goes to the modem, and this guy will just pop right in there with a null modem, and we'll be good to go. Fewer adapters. We're gonna have to do something about this cable damage first though. One reasonable option is I could probably just jam it sideways into the slot on the modem, but I'll work at it with some pliers first to give us a little bit of a chance, and the pins aren't bent or damaged at all, so I'm going to attempt to keep it that way. I'll be back. Got it straightened out enough. Just did a test fit and it's gonna work just fine. This is not the ThinkPad I thought it was. This one is running Windows 98 with no good display driver, so it looks like crap. I thought it was that one. That's the Windows 7. It doesn't have a serial port. We might transfer over to that anyway. Use a different type of modem. This might still work though. It's just going to look like crap. As you can see, not the nicest looking thing in the world, but we do have COM1. That is the serial port. And we should have a program called Hyperterm, I think, which used to ship with all copies up through Windows XP. Let's see if I can find it in here. Should be in here somewhere. Got a good old phone dialer. Oh, baby. You can dial numbers. That's not what we want, though. All right, this one doesn't have Hyperterm, and I don't want to make you look at that anyway. We're going to go a slightly less exciting route, or maybe more exciting, depending on your viewpoint, with this one. Windows 7 laptop is up, but remember, it has no physical serial port, so we're going to have to forgo this guy at the moment, but we have other options. It has something called a PCMCIA slot, and I've got a couple of those cards, few of those cards here. These are 56K modems, some of them. These two are 56K data fax modems. This is a megahertz PCIMCIA modem, 28.8 kilobits per second. They sometimes came in these cool jewel cases, and I like these because they have this thing called the X-Jack. So that's where the phone cable goes. I don't think this one has it. Yeah, most of them require a proprietary dongle that you never have. This is also an X-Jack model, and it's got a dongle. But I know this one works, and so the way this works is they're kind of like USB devices before USB from a consumer perspective. Like it doesn't technically work anything like USB, but you know, if I'm someone that needs a modem, Or maybe then later I need a wireless LAN card. It's kind of like USB in principle from the consumer perspective. So you slide this in to the slot. Here Windows made a noise, it recognized it. And then if we get into Device Manager under Modems, we can see right away Windows 7 picked up the megahertz PCMCIA modem. Now this is interesting. If I want to talk to this modem using AT commands, I need a serial port. Serial ports are exposed as something Windows calls COM ports, C-O-M. And usually you'd see that in here somewhere, and I don't. And the trick is you can double click on this modem, and if we go to the modem tab, it'll tell you what underlying COM port it's using. So this is COM 6. So it's being exposed as serial port 6, I guess you could say, to this Windows machine. And if we fire up faithful old putty and go to serial and connect to COM 6, and we type AT, sure enough, that modem that's inserted is trying to talk back to us. Everything is cool. So back in the day, you would always have a physical terminal to connect to things. What's going on over there in PuTTY is terminal emulation. That's a terminal emulator. It's literally pretending to be one of these. As far as any hardware it's talking to, it doesn't know the difference, whether it's talking to PuTTY or it's talking to one of these original terminals that would have been actually at a desk back in the day. So now what we've got is two machines that can talk each to a modem, not this one unfortunately, but the PCMCIA modem in here. This guy is still talking to this one. We need a POTS line so that the modems can dial one another, and then these computers can talk over the modem connection. So we need something to act as a telecom provider, an analog POTS line telephone provider between these two to provide dial tone and to allow one modem to call the other, and hopefully vice versa. The easiest way to do that in a home lab situation is with something called an ATA, analog telephone adapter. This example here is a Cisco unit that apparently used to be covered with duct tape, and it's a little more sophisticated. It's also a router. So if we take a look on the back, it's got the power in, very clearly marked, center positive, 5 volts DC. What a novel concept. And then this thing can take internet, and then this is the Ethernet. This can act as a router. And then the important part for our case is we've got two analog phone lines, phone 1 and 2. The basic idea is you can set it up so that when you call this one, it dials this one. When you call this one, it dials this one, and the whole time, in the meantime, it's providing dial tone to both lines. Now, I've already configured one of these to do exactly that, and it's not this one. I, of course, can't find it. So we're going to use this as an excuse to see if we can get this thing working today. This is a Cisco ATA 186 analog telephone adapter. Best I can tell, oldest reference I've seen is it came out roughly 2001. So it's up there. And I really like the look of it, this era of Cisco gear. It's pretty hefty. This is plastic on the top, but the bottom is some sort of metal base. And let's see, I don't see a manufacture date here, but again, 5 volt, 2 amp, center positive. It's not that hard, modem manufacturers. And then something interesting about these ATAs, at least the 2 or 3 I've dealt with, you can plug a phone into slot 1, line 1, and you can dial special key codes, and it'll actually talk to you and tell you about its configuration. So I was reading the manual, and there is a key code configuration, aside from a bunch of other ones to actually configure the thing, including using this button. But there's one we can dial, and it'll tell us its IP, because on the back here you can see it's got a 10 megabit Ethernet port, and it should be hosting some web interface UI that we're going to need to configure this thing. This was sent in by a viewer and patron named Mark, so huge thanks to him. Another item saved from the scrap bin, but we ought to plug it in before I get too excited. Oh, this 5 volt adapter is the wrong size. I'll be right back again. I have like 5 bins like this. 12 volts. 5 volts, 3 amps, maybe. Let's see. That's gonna do it. I also, of course, have a bench power supply with 30 different adapters and stuff, but I haven't set it up in a permanent fashion. So plug this in. I like that. Oh, I thought this had a fan for a second. The laptop kicked its fan on right when I did that. Nothing else going on except that on the back we see a green light. It says active, so that's good. Okay, I like that. To listen to some of the configuration about this thing, the manual said to get an analog phone into phone line 1, Only the best down here. $2 Amazon special. When you pick it up, that line turns red, but I don't hear a dial tone. And then it says I can press this button and then 80, and it should tell me its IP address. Okay, it's actually a little more interesting than that. And of note, what you're about to hear is, I think, almost identical to a later Linksys ATA I've messed with. I think it was after the Cisco acquisition. Anyway, it's a British lady's voice, kind of computerized. Get ready.
Configuration menu. Enter menu number followed by the pound key.
So I want to press 80 and then pound to get the IP.
80192.168.11.102.
Okay. Okay, I think the British lady said 192.168.11 network for this guy. And so what we need to do is get this one, just because it's right here, on the same network. And I can't just plug these in directly. I need to use something called a crossover cable, which I have right here. I actually know where mine is. I keep it in a well-known location. I'm going to go put it back right now. But I find that very boring. I'm down here messing with stuff. I like to mess with more stuff at the same time. That's the primo combo. So usually I would pull a hub or a switch off the old Linksys stack here. But I've pretty much lost interest in looking for power adapters tonight. And it's 20 minutes into a modem video, and we haven't even seen a modem dial anything yet. So let's unbox the Intel InBusiness 5-port hub. Complete inbox, brand new, I think. So you haven't seen two modems talk to each other yet, but at least you get an Intel InBusiness 5-port hub, simple connections for small business unboxing. Intel's been in the Ethernet game for a very long time, and they've made very significant technical contributions. In fact, I had the pleasure and honor of interviewing Doug Boom, an Ethernet expert who worked for Intel for a very long time. I'll link that video down in the description below. Highly recommend you checking it out. And we might have even discussed this business line that Intel had. I think maybe he said they acquired it from someone. At any rate, this one is, as far as I can tell, unopened. I have not opened it anyway, personally. It's got the tape on there, and I bought this on eBay forever ago, and they had quite the series of stuff. Simple connections for small business with SureStack trademarked feature. So they probably like interconnected and locked together. You know I like that. So let's open this bad boy up. This is just, you know, bait to get you to stick around until we... This is definitely brand new. I was going to say until we get modems talking to each other. We've got the Intel InBusiness Network Setup Wizard in a nice bag. That's pretty good. And then that's probably the power supply. This is the whole reason I opened this box. I didn't want to look for one of these friggin' things. Oh yeah. Oh, she's heavy too. She feels nice. 7.5 DC. I will be reboxing this because I'm never going to find that again. What do we got here? Oh yeah, brand new. Brand new. Look at this. Beautiful plastic covering. Doesn't weigh anything. Has a clunking ass power switch. Oh yeah. The whole point of getting this thing out is I don't have to use that short cable I just showed you, which I could have used. And we're going to connect this guy to this guy via this Intel InBusiness 5-port hub with the ridiculous switch. What do we got on the back? Uplink to another hub and 5 ports. And then we got this. Ooh. What do you think that's worth on eBay? Nothing much on the back except for a very big, nice looking sticker. Intel logo. Made in China with partial foreign content, not 100% foreign content, whatever that means. And then no date. I'm guessing late 90s, very late 90s. The documentation has a copyright Intel Corporation year 2000. The outlet situation down here is getting pretty dire. Got this one, a couple things going in there. And then there's another outlet way over there. My New Year's resolution, I'm going to hold myself to it. I'm going to do like a shop improvement video. And we're going to clean all this up because it's really slowing me down. So we'll get the power in there. I like that I don't think it was on and those lights did something. There it goes. It was on. Okay, nothing's plugged in. We're going to plug in the ATA and the laptop. Both devices are plugged in, and we see connectivity lights on the Intel InBusiness 5-port hub. Over on the Windows 11 machine, I'm going to get on the 192.168.1.11 network. Hopefully. Close all this. I also realized I don't think I've explained what I'm doing, what the hell I'm doing. So I'm trying to get on the same network as this thing. And the reason is it has a web interface and I can configure what's called a dial plan. So hopefully I can get it to start telling us dial tone, and I can configure a number of my choice so that when I dial from this modem, I can reach the other modem and vice versa. So this laptop is on this 192.168.1.1 network. We're going to try to ping the ATA, and we can get it. So that means we are on the same network. That's good. All right, we have an emergency situation. Not only do you get the Intel InBusiness hub, you get Chloe. You got gunk in your eyes, Chloe. She sits outside the door while I film in the other part of the basement, and she was freaking out. What do you think, modems? She's gonna put her butt right there. Chloe, hi. You were screaming and yelling earlier. Nothing to say now. Just purrs. Yeah. Oh, got a little bit of squeak. She's very squeaky. She's a squeaky cat. You're not gonna talk? She's purring up a storm. Okay. Goodbye, Chloe. I hit the ATA's IP, and I'm getting hit with invalid access. That's coming from the ATA. What does that mean? It could be HTTPS. Sort of doubt it. Yes, Internet Explorer, we know. Just on a whim, I'm going to press this button and then do it. All right, time to read the manual again. All right, got a little further. I have to go to /dev. She's a primitive device. To be fair, I got this far after like 2 seconds of reading the manual, so I'm going to go look at what the password situation is. I just cut out like 20 minutes of footage of me dicking around with this thing. I was able to factory reset. You had to do it through the phone to give it a new IP. Now it doesn't have a password, but pretty big problem. There isn't a way in here that I can tell to assign each port something called a dial plan, which basically gives it a phone number and lets the ports call each other. And I found online that this thing expects to have a Cisco call manager running on the network to configure these 2 ports specifically. And that just means it's going to be a ton more work. It'll be a whole video someday about how to actually get this thing working. I was a little suspicious that I never got dial tone coming out of it, and that's because it expects to be remotely configured over the network. So I'm going to stop messing around so we can get back to the modems. We're going to bring in the serious equipment. This is a Cisco 2900 series router that I have used for telephony stuff in the past. And on the back, it's got an FXS card, meaning I can create 4 distinct phone lines with this thing. I think I even already have it configured to do this, call into this one, call that one situation. So I'm going to power this up, stop wasting your time, and I'll come back when we've got dial tone. Okay, we've got the 2 phones. We have dial tone, and they can call one another. You'll have to trust me, I can call this one, but this one has a really annoying ringer. And the Cisco is down there on the ground making a bunch of fan noise because I'm out of room on the bench. We're finally set up. Both modems are plugged in. This line is 425.271.5555. This line is 425.271.6666. As you can see on the laptop, I've already got a terminal session, and the PCMCIA modem is talking back just fine. Let's see if we're in the same shape with this multi-modem. We are. And so now what we're going to do is dial a number. That's ATDT, and then I'll type in the number, and we should hear the modem doing stuff. It is dialing. Over on the other modem, we're getting ring notifications. We can do ATA, and now we're answering. This guy's making modem noises. And over here, we get some information about the connection. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go type on the laptop keyboard. And like magic, you can see it on this screen. And then no surprise here, I'm about to type on the terminal so we can send information back and forth. I promised you we'd get to it. So these modems have established a connection over a real phone line, and they can talk back and forth between the two terminals. This is the most basic, I would argue, form of modem communication you can get going. A little more to cover. So I want to hang up the call. The call is still established, but if I try these AT commands, ATH actually hangs it up. You can see nothing's happening because we're in data mode and it's just outputting on the other terminal on the other end of the modem connection. Usually with these Hayes compatible modems, I'm going to press the plus sign 3 times. Okay, and well, it literally said okay. And now we can hang up the call and enter these commands. Over on the other screen, it says no carrier. And I should be, able to enter AT commands for this modem now. Just for completeness, let's dial the other way. We'll dial this modem from this one and establish the connection with a slight twist. We're going to enter some more AT commands to tell this modem to answer automatically. Remember, I had to type ATA last time. I had to be here at the terminal. So we're going to do AT S0 is the option for auto answer. And I can say 2. This means auto answer after 2 rings. And it says okay, so that's fine. Back over here, I've got ATDT, then the phone number of the modem we're trying to call on the desk here. I believe it's dialing. So there's our 2 rings. And I think they're establishing connection. Yep, that guy's making noise. And bam, right, just like that. It auto answered, and I typed that on the terminal. So there we go. If you've looked at tutorials and stuff, you've probably seen that ATS0 thing before. And auto answer is obviously a nice feature. You could have this at a remote location and it's always going to pick up. So that's the simple setup between 2 modems. I'm going to go attempt to think of something more interesting to do. I've been busy the last 24 hours, but let me tell you the dream. Over in the retro rack, I've got a bunch of retro equipment. One of those items is a terminal server. So it's got a squid cable coming off the back. I can remotely manage over my network those items. Longtime viewers will remember about a year ago, I did a video on the AUX port on Cisco equipment. This is a port in addition to the console port you can actually plug modems up to. So the dream is I can dial in to the terminal server. It's not entirely practical in my application because I'm like 20 feet away, but I think it's going to be a little more like how someone would actually use modems back in the day. I finally found my ATA that's already pre-configured, so it's a lot quieter without that massive 2900 roaring on the floor. And basically this thing is configured so if you dial 425-271-5555, on this line it rings this one, and oddly enough, if you dial that same number on this one, it rings the other, which now that I'm thinking about it, it's kind of weird. But these are relatively flexible. This one is a Cisco SPA 2102-R. So I can tell you with confidence that you can use these for dial-up and analog phone type purposes. One oddity is that it won't give you dial tone unless it's on a network. So it's just randomly plugged into my home network, I think. It's not doing anything network related. It just won't give you dial tone without that. And ooh, it gets hot. So that 2900 might be off, but the tradition of Cisco equipment on the floor continues. This is another 2500 that I've been experimenting with. It's very similar to the terminal server that's in the retro rack. And in that video, I could only kind of get it to work. So I got it to work with like a really slow Hayes modem. It would sort of kind of not work other times. And finally, in a Patreon video, I followed up and basically cheated and bought a special cable for this. And then it started working, more or less. Not that great though. I, of course, can't find that cable. Story of the night. So I'm going to walk you through something that does work. I figured out a way. I've been messing around with the 2 modems we've been using throughout this video. I don't think I've ever showed you the IBM doing anything, but it does work. It's functional. Multi-modem works, of course. I can't get them to do this AUX dial-in thing consistently, so I finally gave up and pulled out a US Robotics V92 modem. Cisco has these very well documented, all the settings you need to put on them, and that's what's happened to this one in the past. you can see here I was hooking up the other modems to this terminal and configuring them and then swapping them back to the Cisco, and I can't get them to work right. I'll show you that in a little bit. One of those blue cables going into the 2500 is the actual console port, and it's going over to my main machine. Right here I'm consoled into it, and let me show you what this thing's up to. So I have, one second, I have debug modem on. So that's what this stuff is spitting out. So whenever the modem talks to the aux port, you'll get some information about it. So let me show you my configuration. Down in the aux port settings. So this configures that aux input, and these are the settings that are working for me. It's going to prompt for a password. The password's admin, modem in out, transport input all, and flow control hardware. That's all that's going on the router. There's a little bit of documentation that I could find online from Cisco about the multi-modem, but the USR modems are very well documented because they were so ubiquitous. This is a V92 56K fax modem. It has some more indicators than those other modems, and it's a combination of dip switches you set on the back and the Hayes modem commands. So this one's got auto answer on. TR means terminal ready. That means it's successfully connected up to the router. And to that point, I just found another DB25 to 9 pin, and then we got to do a gender changer, and then a null modem. And this is just a Cisco console cable. I don't know if you're supposed to, I don't think you're really supposed to use this. What theoretically should have worked is one of these into a what's called a rollover cable. Let me go find it. So this right here, it's blue, but it's not a Cisco console cable. This is a rollover cable. So like the gray pin on the left is the far right pin on the other end. So it rolls them over, so to speak. So I thought that would work with this no null modem. Doesn't work with this or a null modem or any of the other RJ45 to 9 pin adapters. I even tried an RJ45 to 25 pin adapter, but this combo seems to be working. Oh, and I've been reading through the Cisco iOS Dial Services Configuration Guide Terminal Services book, and it wasn't all that useful compared to the online stuff. A viewer named Jackson sent this in, so huge thanks to him. But I've got this modem on the other end, and we're going to dial in to the aux port on the router that's sitting on the floor. Unfortunately, this guy's speaker is, never mind, hasn't been working all night. Now it's working. So we're dialing in, and then you can see on the router console, it sees the modem coming up for ready. An exec was created for me, and back on the terminal, it's asking for my password, which is admin, and then we're in. We are remotely managing the router over a modem, and I've got a password set for getting into enable mode. So yeah, we can totally connect. I think if I exit out of the router, it just kills the connection. Yep, no carrier. And we can see back on the router, the modem has gone idle. I know it doesn't seem like that big of a deal, but from here, we were able to dial up over an analog POTS line, and we were able to connect to this remote modem, and it in turn is going into the aux port of the Cisco down there, and we can administer it. So this thing behaves perfectly. What happens here is it's continually like dropping the connection and bringing it back up with the router repeatedly. So let me show you that, and then we're going to transfer all this into the retro rack, and we'll look at it for real on the terminal, try to get somewhat of a real experience here. I'm going to hook this one back up, show you what happens. So he's back on and connected to the router. The terminal ready blinks on and off. We see a little blink of transmit and receive data, and it just loops and does this. And as you can see on the router console, the modem is constantly going hang up, idle, idle, ready, and it's making execs even though no one's connected. And yeah, this is almost certainly a configuration issue on these modems. They both behave the same, and I just cannot figure out what to set. I've set all the same things I set for this bad boy, but no luck. But we've got this one at least. So what we're going to do is I'm going to transfer this modem and this ATA over to the retro rack. We'll get rid of this computer, and we'll use one of these modems on a real terminal to dial into it remotely and sort of get the real experience here. I'll be back. So here's the setup. Here is the terminal server that we're going to remotely dial into with the modems. On the back of this, there is of course an aux port, and I've got my cable plugged in. Then over here, I've got the temporary remote dial-in setup, and by temporary, I mean probably going to sit like this for 4 months. Got the modem, that's going off to the aux port. one line coming into here, and one of these lines is going out into the other room, so we can dial in from the terminal. Speaking of terminals, check out this digital terminal keyboard I got. And I think it's like a VT520 model or something. Notice anything funny about this one? Maybe some of these keys? It's in German. I did not notice that when I bought it, so proud owner of a German digital terminal keyboard. I've got a lot of other analog telephone capabilities, so these two guys right here on the back have a bunch of different ports, a bunch of expansions where I could add more. But I don't know, just to play around, it felt kind of weird to have to fire up the whole rack and have all this work to get the dial tone, you know, the analog line, so that I could remote into the same rack. You know what I mean? So that's why we're doing it out of band. This is my other telecom provider. But I do really want to clean up the telephone situation down here. This one's doing VoIP phones. This one can do dial-up internet and is not part of the rack. I think I've said that 5 times. So let me know. I would like to do a video after I decide what I'm going to do, really locking in the phone line situation, get multiple phone lines going over to that other room, maybe to other parts of the house. Let me know what you think. So I'm testing out the setup in here with the multi-modem, and I've got a funny situation. It gets dial tone, but it waits too long to dial. That ATA is configured, I think, with a really small period before it considers the line busy. You have to dial awfully quick, basically. I noticed this when I was playing with the phones myself. So check this out. I'm going to dial that number. Dial tone. Goes busy right before it starts dialing, and then we just get a bunch of noise. It beeps like that for a while. So that's too bad. I'm going to play around and see what I can do about this. Actually, I was getting a little ahead of myself. None of that stuff in the rack was even turned on, so powered everything up, and we're looking at the terminal server we're trying to dial into, and I've got it in the same configuration: login, password admin, modem in out, transport input all, and flow control hardware. Again, that is going to be a problem though, that slow dial thing, so let's go figure that out. Nothing throwing more modems that the problem can't solve. This baby dials right away. Check this out. It's arguing with the other modem about how fast they're going to talk. And we're in, asking for password, admin. We are managing the term server remotely. It's beautiful. Uh-oh. I don't have a password set on this thing. Maybe we'll do something about that. We can look at some stuff though. Show version. So notice how it's kind of clunky when it's scrolling like that. Check this out. If we get into the settings of this terminal, we go to display and we go over to scrolling mode. Change it to slow, smooth. Get out of here. Now watch. Oh yeah. That's the terminal experience right there. I think if we just do this username admin, password admin, it might let us log in, get into privilege exec mode. Let's find out. Round 2. That didn't work. Let's exit. I'm gonna start over. So exit actually gets rid of the call, and then you got to dial again. I'll do this real quick. Figured it out. I should have done enable secret, then the password, admin. This is not a Cisco device security tutorial, but let's see that show running config in the slow scroll mode. Oh yes. How good is that? So good. So the POTS line down here is a little contrived, but this is a legitimate setup. You'd have a terminal somewhere else in the world, a modem, and you can dial in as a backup resort if your whole network is down, or maybe your primary resort. I don't really know, to administer your network gear. Thanks for sticking it out for this one. This video kind of wandered around and rambled a little bit on me. I really thought this ATA was going to work for us, and I think it could if I was running the Cisco Call Manager software elsewhere, so I'd probably do a dedicated video on that. I'm sure that's quite the experience. A lot of the times I make these videos to kind of force myself or encourage myself to learn more things about the item at hand, and I had these dreams that I was actually going to be able to properly troubleshoot that modem issue you were seeing with it resetting on the Cisco AUX router. And I still am just a little bit of a layman, I think. I mean, I'm not totally inept. I can hook the things up. I can more or less configure them. I have still a pretty high level understanding. So what I need to do is go do my homework and actually understand the signaling that's happening between the modem and the serial connection, and then things like this will be a lot easier to troubleshoot in the future. I'm hoping I get another video out this year. I'm also hoping to hit 70,000 subscribers, but statistically, that's not likely. So hopefully I have time to tinker around with something more and film it for you guys. But in the meantime, thank you so much for watching this far. If you haven't already, of course, please subscribe. And I've also got a Patreon where I post behind the scenes type videos. You also get access to the Serial Port Discord for the $5 and up tiers. Hope you had fun playing with these modems. I've got quite a few more modems. I never thought it would be useful to have more than one, but 2 is definitely the minimum, and then 3, 4, and maybe 5 is useful when they're acting up and you can get some to work and do things that the others couldn't. But anyway, I'll see you in the next video.